That's the last time I go outside on Halloween. Damn tricksters. Always playing tricks on me. So it's Halloween, and what are you going to spend it with? Trick-or-treating? Partying? Or maybe together with friends? Or you like me watching goddamn Halloween specials all day long, all alone?
You hear the screeching of an owl, you hear the wind begin to howl. You know there's zombies on the prowl. And it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. It's terror time again. And you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time.
So today, since it is Halloween and all, I decided to make a best of the best list of those Halloween specials I find the most enjoyable to watch on this day. If you have nothing better to do, like me.
And to point it out, this is only the animated specials I'm going to count on this list. So no sitcom specials. I watch a lot of cartoons in my spare time and thought that these are just more enjoyable in general. And to point it out further, no Nightmare Before Christmas on this list. I don't say that it is a bad movie, just that it is a mix of Christmas and Halloween, and therefore I couldn't decide where to put it.
So I didn't.
And also no Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. This is mainly because I rarely watch Simpsons, and neither did I watch their specials that much. I don't know, but I didn't mention them on this list. Before we start, I want to say that this is my personal top 13 list. So, if you don't agree with my list, then don't go rant about how wrong I am. This is my list and these are the specials I find the most enjoyable.
So with all that said, let's dig right into my personal top 13 best of animated Halloween specials.
'Cause it's terror time again. They've got you running
Number
through
13.
the night.
Nightmare on Wilson Way, Foster's Home of Imaginary Friends.
To start this list, I decided to go with a somewhat creepy episode starring Meg and Blue. And the rest.
So the episode starts out with Mac being tied to a bed since he goes completely nuts when he gets the least bit of sugar. And speaking of nuts, Blue tries to prank the other imaginary friends with his old and tiresome snakes in a nut jar prank. But since he has overused this prank, no one falls for it. All except Harriman, which ends up getting a heart attack in the process. Seeing that his prank was so good it could kill, Blue decides to hide the dead body in the backyard. But since this is Halloween, Mr. Harriman returns as a living dead and infects everyone he gets near. So that Blue and Mag are the only ones left, and seeing that there is no escape, Blue decides to feed Mag some candy to get out of the house alive. But of course it was all a prank they pulled on Blue since they were all sick and tired of his lame pranks. So what is good about this episode? Well, first of all, the pacing of it all. It started out just fine, and when something goes wrong, they actually take the time to fully develop what's happening. You know, so the viewer can get the most enjoyment out of the situation. And the escalating of this problem is also really good. It started out as a minor problem and I use that term lightly. And at a decent pace becomes an all Night of the Living Dead situation. I also like the idea of the characters trying to finally backprank the prankster. The whole ending is also good since it ties in rather well with the whole series, since I feel that a lot of special misses this point. I would say though that it's not flawless, and it's pretty low in the list for one minor problem.
I mean, even though they stated that Blue have been living here for years, Max still looks like he's the same age.
What?
At least, it's a pretty solid episode. For the bottom of this list.
All the trees begin to moan, and the monsters grunt and groan. Rotting faces full of slime. Don't you know it's
Number 12. Scary Godparents. Fairly Odd Parents. This show. I remember liking this quite a lot when I was younger.
By the way, have you ever seen the Oh Yeah Shorts episodes? If not, I would highly recommend them since they're really funny for what they are.
Anyway, this episode features what all great Halloweens have. A bit of spookiness and a truckload of candy. This whole episode is about Timmy and his friends going out to trick-or-treat, quickly realizing that their costume stinks the big one, and therefore cannot get any candy. So Timmy decides to make a wish to make their costumes real and scary, and of course since this is a special, he sings the wish.
Real and scary! On Halloween, all through the night, we should be filled with fear and fright.
You can take this song or leave it for all I care. It may not be the best. But of course, the rich kids who got the cool Pumpkinator outfits also become real and scary.
By the way, great name putting Nader at the end of Pumpkin. How original. Wait a minute.
So this Pumpkinator quickly determines to blow up Earth. And it's up to Timmy to stop it with a mixture of used costumes.
They probably can.
But in the end, Wanda gets a godparent costume and turns back to herself and wishes everything back to normal. What's great about this special is that it shows how commercialized Halloween has become. It shows that if you have the money to get a great costume, you'll get the best treats at Halloween. And of course, the best can be bought.
I got a candy apple and $12,000.
Seriously, who gives away 10 grand at Halloween? I wanna go there. Why I didn't put this high on the list is simple. The climax is a bit weak. I feel that they could have gone further with this. They could have made an army of cool hero monsters to fight off this Pumpkinator, instead of just wishing everything back to normal. I mean, in a normal episode, he never wishes anything back to normal, no matter what. And if he does, it is the last solution. But here, that's his first solution.
I wish we were all back to normal.
I feel that Timmy is a tiny bit out of character in this one, but it is still enjoyable nonetheless.
You know, come to think of it, a lot of this show would have been a lot shorter if he just undid his wishes instantly.
Number 11. Curse of the Necklace. Martin Mystery. Oh yeah, Martin Mystery. I always loved this show as it was one of the few ones I knew about that was about paranormal activity and all that.
Of course, watching this show when you are older and have studied a lot of cryptozoology, you kinda see that they might not be too accurate in a lot of the episodes.
You could say that again.
But for the time being, I would say that this was actually the best show to surround this topic.
So, what is this episode about? A cursed necklace is being found by a resident of Charlottetown and is now emitting a high amount of paranormal activity, or as Martin called it, a dead zone.
This is a dead zone.
Meanwhile this is happening, Martin and Java is preparing for the school's costume party, when they get interrupted by Diana, who thinks that Halloween has been too commercialized over the past years.
I'm not going, period. Because Halloween is way too commercial. A lame excuse to sell costumes and decorations and candy.
But Martin, having the greatest costume of all time, doesn't care. But of course, his costume has been swapped in the mail, and instead of dressing as Extremo, he now dresses as the Big Baby Martin.
Big baby Martin.
My words exactly. So they get to Charlottetown in order to interrogate Patty, who seems to have got a great shock.
Not that unnatural on Halloween if you ask me.
But nevertheless, they quickly realizes that something is wrong. First of all, the hospital Patty is signed in is completely empty, which actually makes for some good creepy scenery. But when they find the guy, they get interrupted by a gigantic buzzing crow, who decides to chase them away. So now our heroes has nothing else to do and try and investigate the neighborhood, which seemed to be a great idea since this is a really big dead zone.
This is a dead zone.
And of course they quickly realizes that some candy surrounding the place turns people into what they are wearing.
A about now, we could say that this is a better drawn and maybe a bit more creepy version of Scary Godparents. But at the same time, it really isn't.
So after Martin has turned into his costume, they find the culprit and puts an end to her all-Halloween scheme that she's been plotting. This might not be the very best Martin mystery episode, but it sure captures a few things about Halloween. First off, Diana's thoughts that Halloween has been too commercialized, Martin's obsession over trick-or-treating, and of course the spooky eeriness surrounding it all. To be honest, I was actually about to put another episode called The Haunting of Blackwater on the list instead, since that is one amazing creepy episode. For what the show is, of course. But I thought that a Halloween-based episode would be more appropriate at this time of year. And I cannot deny the backgrounds in this show in general. They really catches a creepy vibe, and I also like this semi-anime style that Marathon have.
True, the villain might not be the creepiest I have encountered so far, and I'm speaking of the Crow here. But nevertheless, it's a really great episode.
It's terror time again, and you just might die of fright.
Number 10.
It's a terrifying time.
Pinky and the Brain's Halloween Special. You cannot have a great Halloween in my opinion if no one tries to take over the world. And who is better to do that in the dynamic mouse duo themselves?
And the Halloween Special. That's also a good one.
It starts out unlike the other episodes with their plans already been foiled. And of course Brain is getting rather tired of this and asked if he needs to sell his soul in order for world domination.
Just what do I have to do to take over the world? I've tried everything short of selling my soul!
And wouldn't you have it, the devil who's called Mr. Itch in this episode offers Brain world domination in exchange for his soul.
Coincidence?
But of course Brain refuses this offer, so Pinky decides to sign instead, to be nice to Brain. This leads to a little scene where Brain realizes that missing Pinky is actually way too much for him, and he has to choose between his passion and his best and probably only friend. Meanwhile, Brain is figuring this out. Pinky is being tortured in hell, but to Mr. Itch's irritation, he actually likes this torture. But before long, since we didn't see this whole waiting in line thing, Brain confronts Itch in order to get Pinky back. So Brain challenges Itch to rhythmic gymnastics.
Who do you think invented that infernal sport?
But of course, dealing with the devil himself, Itch easily wins over Brain. So it looks like Pinky has to stay in hell, called Hades in this episode. Well, that's rather funny actually.
But Pinky notices something missing in the original contract, which makes it invalid.
So with the first contract out of the way, the Mouse Duo now plans to take over the world. Once again.
This episode isn't scary unless you're a toddler maybe, but it sure is funny as all Hades. So what makes this episode worth being on this list? First of all, as I said, it's a nice episode. The bond between Pinky and Brain is really great in this one. Although I have to say, I do not quite see the burden Brain goes through before realizing that he misses Pinky. It's just moving on way too fast. The ending is really great. Pinky for once using his brain instead of relying on Brain's brain is a nice addition. I'm not saying he never uses it, but it's rarely in my opinion at least.
Oh wait, that's not a pumpkin, that's your head.
But overall, it's a nice little episode to watch as a startup on Halloween.
They're Pinky and the Brain, Narf, Sword, Trust, Point.
Yes, it's terror time again. Oh, you just might die.
Number 9.
of fright.
It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I have to say that I actually enjoyed this cartoon as a kid despite my young age. I did see this cartoon a lot since it aired on Cartoon Network in my country at the early 2000s. So I guess it's a no-brainer why this is on the list.
Well, it's tradition. And actually I think I would go to jail if I didn't put it on the list.
Anyway, the story is pretty simple. Linus and Lucy goes to the local pumpkin field. I assume that's common in America. To get the perfect pumpkin. A short gag later, the whole crew is ready to go trick-or-treating. But of course, Linus have gotten the holidays mixed up and thinks that there exists a great pumpkin that delivers presents to good children. So Linus and Sally decides to stay in the most sincere pumpkin field they could find, while the rest go enjoy themselves, all except Charlie Brown.
Well, I think life has abandoned.
And while this is happening, Snoopy is all behind enemy lines. To be fair, I never actually watch these parts too closely. But nevertheless, Snoopy ends up at the party thinking he is a refugee in a distant country. And this special pretty much ends with Snoopy being mistaken for the Great Pumpkin by Linus, who passes out by this.
So what's so great about this Halloween special? First of all, I think it has a lot of nostalgic value to it, since I believe that a lot of young audiences would probably pass this one, since they didn't grow up with these kind of cartoons. But that doesn't make it bad at all.
This Halloween special is actually one of the first specials surrounding Halloween, as far as I recall at least. And I would give it credit for that, since back in the days, as far as I heard, Halloween wasn't as big as it is now. Of course, being from Europe and all, I just got recently introduced to Halloween, so I am not so sure on this one. I have to say that this episode pretty much got it all. It has trick-or-treating, it got the party. All it misses is actually the spookiness.
I would say if you like old cartoons, this is definitely one of the good ones to watch on Halloween.
And it's terror time again. They've got you running through
Number 8.
the night.
Hey Arnold and the Headless Cabby. I didn't watch Hey Arnold when it aired, and I still haven't seen the show. And actually I was about to decide not to put this episode on the list at all. So what made me change my mind? Well, the whole build-up at the end is a pretty good reason in my opinion.
I hear from a lot though, that Arnold's Halloween is the best Halloween special featuring Hey Arnold.
But I couldn't find it anywhere, not online nor in stores, anywhere. So I couldn't put it on the list since I was unable to watch it. Anyway, that out of the way, the story starts with the gang telling scary stories, but none of them are that. That is until Arnold tells the story about the Headless Cabby, which really give the gang a chill down the spine, especially the bully. And keep in mind that I have never really seen the show, so bear with me that I cannot remember stuff such as the names and the like. But when they are done, they decide to head out for ice cream, and of course, decides to go through the exact same park as Arnold's stories around it.
This leads to a lot of coincidences featuring all of the creepy and spooky parts of the story.
Until they realizes that the Headless Cabby is just a friend of theirs trying to make a living. So he drives them home, and if it ended here, I would probably be disappointed. But I just have to tell the ending, so if you don't want to hear that, then skip to this point. The ending is what makes this episode so great. It seems that the exact same lady is looking for the exact same dog as she did hundreds of years ago, and is even doing the exact same as she did in the stories. So you can imagine, since I haven't seen the show, that this ending really leaves a lot of speculation with me. And I really love when cartoons makes me think afterwards. So, a somewhat nice recap of the Headless Horseman made into the big city style. This is definitely worth a shot if you want a nice little story to get you in the mood. Or go watch some horror movies, you know, like most people do.